readers, it's Lori, and I am here today to honor my childhood reading on my birthday. Thanks for joining me today on this special day. As I get older, birthdays become less and less important, I guess, but they also provide a time for me to reflect on certain things. And this year and in years past, I have reflected on books, but I thought I would bring forward some of my favorite books from my childhood. They might have been your favorite books as well. Maybe you've never heard of them. Maybe you're looking for books for your children or grandchildren. Either way, I just want to share a quick sort of run through of some books that still to this day remain my absolute childhood favorites. And some of these are the original copies that I had as a child. So let's get started. Now, you've heard me talk about how we lost everything in a hurricane, and that is very true. So you're wondering how these books got preserved. They were in my attic. Not a ton of them, but a few of them were in my attic because I wasn't, planning to read them at any time, and my kids were older, so had certainly outgrown that reading of these particular titles. However, my attic was really the only thing that didn't flood. So whatever was in the attic survived. That's a whole nother story. But let's talk about some of my favorites from when I was a child. So I have talked about this one before. This is The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster. I love this cover with the clock, the dog with the clock. This is about Milo, who is very bored as a child. He's not happy. He's just like through life. And suddenly a portal opens up, a toll booth opens up in his room, and he walks in. Obviously, this is a fantasy. And he meets a number of people on the island of conclusions because you get there by jumping. And he learns about time from Talk, which is the dog with the clock, and embarks on a quest to rescue Rhyme and Reason. So along the way, Milo goes on a journey where he discovers that at least this life that he's in is not so boring after all. And I do really love this book. I still love that book. My love of mysteries came at an early age too. So Basil of Baker Street is one of my favorites by Eve Titus, illustrated by Paul Caldone. He is a mouse that lives in Sherlock Holmes's house, and he helps Sherlock solve crimes and mysteries. There are a ton of these. I would actually like to collect them all in one box, if you will, which I think is available. I just never have pursued purchasing it. But this is The Mystery of the Missing Twins. And I think this is the first one. And he has a lot of crumbs, but where were Angela and Agatha being kept? And they have a sinister kidnapper's note signed by the Terrible Three. So he must find the Terrible Three so that he can rescue Angela and Agatha. I love that one of them's name is Agatha too. Another favorite of mine this series was the Nancy Drew series. I had a bunch of these. I don't have a bunch of them anymore. These I actually replaced because I had lost the ones that I had. I had a big collection. My sisters, I remember, kept adding them to my library, which I really appreciated. Now, Carolyn Keene, who wrote this series, was actually not her, that was not actually her real name. Her name was Mildred Wirt Benson. And she was born in 1905. So she was born way before my parents were, and she died in 2002. So goodness sakes, this woman really had a long and I'm sure satisfying life as an author and as a mainstay for a number of young girls like me who really loved mysteries. These were so amazing to me. Yes, I did read some of the Hardy Boys mysteries. I think my sister Dee loved those more than Nancy. But honestly, to me, I just wanted to see a young girl like me out solving crimes like I wanted to do, and indeed sometimes did try to do in my neighborhood. So there you go. Nancy Drew for the win. Another one The Bobbsey Twins. I know. This poor book is the original that I had. It is not in the best shape. I probably could, I don't know, see if I could repair it. This one is a compilation of 3 mystery stories. This is by Laura Lee Hope, The Bobbsey Twins of Lakeport, The Bobbsey Twins Adventure in the Country, and The Secret at the Seashore, which I do remember as being one of my favorites. This is the title list of the Bobbsey Twins Adventure, so there were a number of them as well. So much like Nancy Drew, Laura Lee Hope was not the author of this book per se. This was published by the Stratemeyer Syndicate. So they had a whole publishing conglomeration where they provided other series of other children's novels as well. And they were written, and I'm going to read this because I won't remember. They were written by Edward Stratemeyer, who was the owner of the syndicate, Howard and Lillian Garris, Elizabeth Ward, Harriet Stratemeyer Adams, which I'm pretty sure was his daughter, and Andrew E. I don't know who Andrew E. was, but these were written by all of them, which is probably why there were so many of them, because, and they were able to, kind of pump them out really quickly because there were a lot of people behind the helm. But I will say this, it's difficult for authors to write in the same vein and make them all, kind of similar and have the same voice and the same feel. So, I mean, that was a pretty big feat, I would say. When I was 9, you've heard this before, I got one of the best Christmas gifts ever, and that was from my cousin, and it was Little Women. Although it was not this edition, I have to say this edition came to me from my friend Sarah at Sarah's Nightstand, and it might have been a birthday gift. I can't now remember. It might have been a Welcome to BookTube gift. Nevertheless, I love this edition. I have a couple editions of Little Women now, just a couple, not anywhere near what I had when I was a young person. I love this. It has beautiful little end papers. Look, there they all are standing in a row. It's a nice little size. It's just gorgeous with these flowers on it, and it has a little sheen to it. I just love it. So Little Women follows Joe, Amy, Lori, and Beth throughout their life after their father has left to join the war effort, and they are left with their mom in a very, very difficult time where their neighbors are impoverished and struggling, and they're trying to stay kind of upbeat despite all of the changes and things that are happening. I adore this plot. I adore the way that she wrote this. It draws me in from the start, and I don't care how many times I read it, I still adore it. And Joe was my alter ego. I think everyone who loves Little Women has a character that they identify the most with, but for me it was Joe, because what did she do? She stayed up in the attic all day reading, and then later writing, and wrote her novel. I will say that my favorite adaptation so far is the Greta Gerwig adaptation. If you haven't seen it, I really do highly recommend that one. I really think atmospherically and capturing the tone of their challenges at that time to define themselves as women and to define themselves as they grew older in a very challenging time in history. I just love that what she did with that book or that movie. The Wizard of Oz, L. Frank Baum, also a favorite. This is a fairly new copy, but I think this is a Barnes & Noble classic. It is. I love The Wizard of Oz. It's a really quick read for me. It's a lovely kind of little romp into this imaginary world that also kind of it has illustrations too. It also kind of has a real sort of message for us about home and about family and about our inner power and strength to return to ourselves or return to the place that we are safe and happy and comforted. So there's a lot of metaphoric space in here for you to explore. If you haven't seen the movie, I can't imagine, but another one I loved as a young person, and I loved the movie too, is Heidi by Joanna Spyri. Joanna was born in Switzerland, and this book is set in the Swiss Alps, which I always loved. Just the atmosphere of this, as well as the film adaptation, bringing that atmosphere to life was quite something for me. This is an Usborne illustrated original. My daughter-in-law and my daughter Sarah both had an Usborne party, and so I had a couple of books that I acquired as a result of supporting them. But I just love this book about Heidi. So Heidi is a treasure. This book is really lovely. It does have some fantastic illustrations in it. So a couple of things about Heidi. The plot, generally speaking, is that Heidi is living with her grandfather in the Alps, and it's kind of a story of their life together and of their adventures, which I always appreciated because the grandfather reminded me of some grandfathers that my grandfather, but also some other grandfathers that I knew in my life. So it was kind of a coming to life of someone that I really cared about and really felt supported by. What's also interesting is Johanna Spyri, she married an attorney and she started writing in the 1800s, and she finished Heidi. She'd written another book about domestic violence, which I found to be very interesting during that time. She was born in the early 1800s and then died, I think, in 1901, so right after the 20th century. But what's interesting about this is that there was a claim that she had plagiarized this book from another author. And the book that I can't remember the other author's name, but the book that she wrote, I think she was German maybe, but it was something like Adelaide in the Alps, Adelaide in the Swiss Alps or something like that. And so she was accused of finding that manuscript and of using it to support her work in writing Heidi. I don't know if she plagiarized that woman's book or not, but I still love Heidi. I'll probably never know. I mean, how would we ever know? Another favorite, The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is the 75th anniversary edition, so this is what I used to replace the ones that I lost. I did have all of them. I do not currently have all of them. This print is kind of small, so I haven't read this again since I got it, but I do love The Hobbit. I love the entire series. Again, apparently I read a lot of fantasy when I was a child. And I struggle a little bit with it now, but this was a great escape for me as a young person. I just remember following Bilbo Baggins into all of his adventures, but also just loving the setting, the atmosphere, the place that he lived and how he lived and how he, how short he was in stature and yet how powerful he was in his ability to be with people and to go on this adventure and to do all the things that he has to do on this quest up to the Lonely Mountain. And he meets Gollum. So who could resist this book? I don't know. And the last one is a copy that Lisa got for me because when I lost this, I was very, gosh, guys, sorry. I was very distressed by it. This is a book I had as a young person too, called Ready or Not by Mary Stoltz. I think I didn't get this until I was a very young, maybe teen. So Ready or Not has stuck with me all these years. And I think it's because it was so empowering, even though, again, a lot of these books had some really sad stuff. A lot of people with orphaned children. And in this case, that is also true. Morgan, who is the main character of this story, her mom dies and she has two siblings, and her father is really struggling with the fact that he's lost his wife and he's having to work and take care of these children, which of course in this time where this was set, that was not something that men did at that time unless they were forced to in this way. So Morgan then has to sort of grow up pretty quickly and take care of her siblings as well as herself and learn a lot about life and about her inner kind of strength and courage and how she's being shaped by this need to move from adolescence into adulthood way before she might have been ready, hence the title. This one actually has been compared to A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, which I loved as well. I don't have a copy of that anymore, and the Horn book. I think she did a great job of really making these characters come to life and making them real. And I just remember feeling like I could get lost in this, and I would like to read this again. It is a very ancient copy. The copyright for this is 1953, and this is a first edition. So it has been through a lot of loving hands and ended up finding its way to me. And so I end with this because this is probably one of my most treasured gifts. And it came from my partner, Lisa, and it's just always going to remain a special book for me. I will evacuate this one. There's a stack of books that I will evacuate, and this is definitely one of them if I ever have to do that again. Okay. Thank you for joining me on my birthday book bash, is what I guess I'm going to call it. This was great fun, and it's really just so special for me to grab these books out of the kids' room where they stay when they come here and just think about how much they've meant to me and how they've stayed with me all these years. So I'm curious, I always have questions for you at the end. What are the books that stayed with you from your childhood? What are those books that you honor, that you want to replace, that really stand out for you as books that impacted you or just made you happy and feel joy, or escape for a while into a phantom toll booth or into a whole nother world? I would love to hear about that. I hope that you're having a lovely beginning of fall. This is technically the beginning of fall, but it's not maybe feeling that way for all of us. But fall is by far one of my favorite seasons. Fall and winter are it for me. So I cannot wait to be with you over the next couple of months as we transition into a whole new season and as I transition into a whole new year. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your comments, subscriptions, everything that you do. It's a blessing and a gift to me today and all day. So happy reading. Bye.